All right, so it is Monday morning, February 23rd, 2026, and the opening bell has just signaled the final death rattle of the paper currency system as we know it. While you were preparing for your week, the global financial plumbing officially froze solid, and the $30 trillion heist of the middle class has moved into its terminal liquidation phase. JON CC is the archive where we look at the raw source code of the market, focusing on logic and real-time movement data, because in this environment of total systemic failure, the only truth left is the physical inventory currently being stripped from Western vaults. The registered silver in the COMEX vaults has hit a level so low that it points to a total delivery failure by this Friday, February 27th, and the mainstream media is being legally barred from reporting the scale of the emergency. We have officially hit the 0 hour where the digital balances in your banking app are no longer connected to a physical reality, and in the next few minutes, I am going to expose why the ATMs are being throttled and show you why the paper price is about to lose its grip on the world forever. The gap between the paper silver price in New York and the actual cost of taking physical delivery in Shanghai has exploded to $13 this morning, proving that the center of global power has officially shifted to the east in a coordinated silent coup. We are witnessing a historic market fracture where the physical metal is no longer moving through traditional Western channels, leaving the LBMA and the Western banking cartels functionally insolvent. This is the great disconnect that confirms the physical reality is finally pulling the paper lie into a violent upward correction that the central banks can no longer suppress with their AI-driven trading loops. The vaults in London are being drained as sovereign nations realize that holding digital entries in a G7 bank is a terminal liability, while holding physical metal is the only form of true sovereignty left. This is the final archive of the old world order, and if you are not watching the registered inventory reports from the primary exchanges right now, you are flying blind into a financial hurricane. The Monday morning session has opened with a massive surge in the dark pools as the market realizes that the silver deficit is no longer a future projection, but a present-day bankruptcy of the Western exchange system. We have seen total COMEX silver inventory drop by over 12% in a single month, a rate of depletion that has triggered a global liquidity event the moment the markets open today. There are currently thousands of contracts demanding immediate physical delivery, and the effort required by the bullion banks to find enough metal to satisfy these claims is creating a massive ripple effect through the shadow banking sector. The global market is no longer a place of fair exchange. It is a battleground where the shorts are being backed into a corner by a wave of physical demand that cannot be settled with digital tokens or central bank promises. If you are still holding paper certificates for silver that you do not physically control, you are essentially holding a ticket for a prize that has already been stolen from the vault. The macro context has shifted violently this morning as the latest emergency reports confirm that the purchasing power of the dollar is being evaporated at a rate that far exceeds the interest rates offered by the banking system. This condition of negative real rates is the historical trigger that drives capital out of fiat currency and into hard assets, as the masses realize that their savings are being used as fuel for the $36 trillion sovereign debt fire. When the global market understands that the central banks are trapped between a total debt collapse and hyperinflation, the rush for physical assets will turn into a stampede that no government can stop or regulate. You can verify these numbers through the central bank's own balance sheet data. The math is public, but the implications are being hidden to prevent a coordinated systemic bank run. JON CC is archiving these movements because the synergy between currency failure and commodity shortages is the playbook for the final reset of the global ledger. Geopolitics has reached a breaking point this Monday as the BRICS nations have officially activated their gold-backed settlement system, directly challenging the hegemony of the petrodollar in the Western financial stack. We are seeing record-breaking physical gold and silver purchases by central banks in the East, effectively stripping the Western vaults of their last remaining defenses in a coordinated economic move. This is not just a trade war, it is a total financial war where the weapon of choice is the control of the world's physical resources and the energy that powers them. The United States has responded by increasing its military footprint in key corridors, but you cannot solve a physical metal shortage with kinetic force or geopolitical posturing. The fragmentation of the global market is the first stage of a total system reboot, and silver's breakout today is the first alarm bell signaling that the paper trap has finally been triggered for the uninformed. An unusual options position has just accumulated on the major exchanges that suggests the smart money is preparing for a massive black swan event before the close of the markets today, February 23rd. We are seeing aggressive buying of deep, out-of-the-money call options that would only pay out if the metals prices triple or quadruple in a very short period of time, indicating a massive hedge against a systemic bank failure. While most speculative bets fail, the scale and timing of these positions occurring just as the physical vaults hit terminal lows is a signal that the global elite are exiting the digital grid and moving into the analog world. This is not a prediction, but a data point sitting in the public records for anyone who knows how to look past the screen and into the real-world flow of capital. In a world of digital illusions, these large-scale tail risk bets are the only honest indicators of where the system controllers expect the world to be when the music finally stops. The honest bearish case must be acknowledged because intellectual honesty is what separates a real archive from a channel that simply follows the hype or fear. If the central banks manage to manufacture a massive deflationary crash in the equity markets this afternoon, it could temporarily pull down the prices of silver and gold as investors sell everything to cover margin calls in the debt markets. Furthermore, if a sudden diplomatic breakthrough occurs in the Middle East, the geopolitical risk premium could evaporate, leading to a sharp but temporary consolidation in the metals complex. However, none of these short-term market moves change the fact that the world is currently running a structural deficit in silver for the 6th consecutive year. You can manipulate the price with paper contracts, but you cannot manipulate the physical inventory with an algorithm. The vaults are either full or they are empty, and the JON CC data proves the physical floor is moving higher regardless of the daily noise. Silver has finally cleared the critical resistance zone that has held the market captive for years, creating a massive launch pad for the next leg of the global repricing event that began this morning. This base-building process has been one of the most significant in financial history, but for this move to be confirmed as a genuine physical squeeze, the price must hold its ground against the high-frequency trading slams that are hitting the New York Open right now. That level is the new line in the sand for the current market structure, and as long as we hold above it, the momentum remains firmly with the physical bulls who are demanding real metal. The next major resistance levels are at levels that the mainstream media considers impossible. Yet the depth of the current shortage suggests that the move could happen with terrifying speed. You must remain disciplined and focus on the daily warehouse flows rather than the minute-by-minute fluctuations on your smartphone screen. The 150 exponential moving average is now acting as a solid floor for the silver market, and every time the price has tested this level, it has been met with aggressive physical accumulation by institutional players. The question for the coming session is straightforward. Will the Western bullion banks be able to find enough physical metal to satisfy the mounting delivery demands, or will they be forced to cash settle and admit they are in terminal default? The supply-demand setup is genuinely broken, and the only way to rebalance the market is through a significantly higher price that incentivizes new mine production, which is a process that takes several years to execute. JON CC is tracking the registered to eligible ratios in the vaults because that is the live variable that will tell the real story before the final market freeze and the lock on the banking exits. The Shanghai Gold Exchange is currently the most important market in the world for physical assets because it is the only exchange where the truth is allowed to drive the price without the interference of Western paper shorts. The fact that the East is consistently paying a premium for metal proves that the seesaw has finally snapped, and the arbitrage is now working to drain every available ounce of wealth out of the Western system. When the public finally realizes that the New York price is a rigged simulation, they will rush to buy whatever physical metal is left at the local dealers, but by then, the premiums will be unaffordable for the average person. This is why the JON CC mission is so critical. We provide the data in the quiet moments so that you can act before the panic becomes the headline on the morning news. Reclaiming your financial independence starts with owning assets that have no counterparty risk and no digital delete button. The high probability of a major geopolitical shift is now the primary driver of the global energy and commodity markets, creating a synchronized convergence of risk that the world has not seen since the 1940s. As the cost of energy and production continues to climb, the natural floor for hard assets increases, creating a wall that the AI trading bots and the paper short sellers cannot break or overcome. We are witnessing the end of the era of cheap energy and the birth of a physical reality where the control of resources defines the power and sovereignty of nations and individuals. JON CC is the only archive cross-referencing this data across multiple sectors, showing you the map of the post-dollar world while the mainstream media is still reading from an obsolete script. The time for speculation is over. The time for verifiable physical reality has arrived for those who are prepared to listen to the data. The change in total silver inventory across all major global exchanges shows a negative trend that is mathematically unsustainable for a modern industrial economy based on high technology and green energy. Silver is an essential component for everything from solar panels to the high-performance chips used in AI servers, and as these revolutions accelerate, the demand is gapping higher than ever before. The price suppression of the last decade has discouraged new mine investment, leading to a structural deficit that cannot be fixed by printing more currency or adjusting interest rates. The ones who check the primary warehouse reports do not need an expert to tell them that the system is failing. They can see the bankruptcy in the numbers and the desperation in the frequent trading halts. Protecting your future requires an understanding that we are moving from a world of infinite paper to a world of finite physical assets. The psychological warfare of the current transition is designed to keep the population afraid of volatility, while the global elite quietly accumulate the world's remaining physical wealth for themselves. They want you to believe that hard assets are outdated, while they use their own central banks to buy up every ounce of gold and silver they can find behind the scenes. By the time a new monetary standard is officially announced, the average person will be completely priced out of the market and forced into a programmable digital currency system. This is why the JON CC archive is providing the evidence of the great wealth transfer in real time, offering the strategic blueprint for the sovereign individual to survive and thrive. Sovereignty is not something given by a state. It is a physical act of owning your own value and your own history outside of the digital surveillance grid. The return of global liquidity to the physical silver market is the final test for the Western banking cartel's ability to maintain the illusion of control over the global financial system. If the current breakout holds, it will trigger a short squeeze of epic proportions that will leave the bullion banks and the paper exchanges in a state of terminal liquidation. The banks are currently using every tool in their arsenal, from high-frequency spoofing to artificial glitches, to prevent this outcome, but they are fighting against the laws of supply and demand. You cannot satisfy a physical industrial requirement with a digital derivative forever, and the coming break will be a total reset that moves wealth from the paper holders to the asset owners. This is the moment of truth that defines the next 100 years of economic history, and the data shows that the clock is ticking faster than anyone realizes. Stay sovereign, stay informed, and stay physical. Because in the archives of history, the only currency that survives the collapse of a central system is the one you can hold in your hand. The global market is resetting, the digital mask is slipping, and the physical truth is finally taking its throne in the halls of power and the vaults of the East. We will see you on the other side of this transition, where the reality of the vaults defines the wealth of nations and the freedom of the sovereign individual. This is JON CC, and this is the strategic archive of the final days of the paper era. Thank you for watching, and remember to always verify the data sitting in the public warehouse reports before you make your final move to protect your family's future and your legacy.